Sein Wissen wird verwendet, kein Scherz, in Krankenhäusern, in Suchtkliniken, sogar in Gefängnissen. Er ist wirklich eine Speaker-Ikone. Ich habe mir nur sagen lassen, ihn bisher noch nie selbst gesehen. Sensationell soll er sein. Ich bin echt gespannt, was er macht hier in den 40 Minuten. Ich glaube, den Ticketpreis hat man in diesen 40 Minuten schon raus. Sein Wissen ist Gold wert. Er berät ja nicht nur Krankenhäuser und Suchtkliniken und sogar Gefängnisse. Deswegen passt er eigentlich ganz gut hierher. Er ist auch Berater von Google. Er ist Berater von Siemens, von der Deutschen Bank und heute eben hier. Ein echter buddhistischer Mönch, der im ältesten und größten tibetanischen Kloster im Westen wohnt, in Schottland nämlich. So please, let me introduce him in English. It's all about mindfulness and transformation. Achtsamkeit ist das große Stichwort. He combines non-religious meditation with positive thinking, with breathing techniques, for example, and I'm really glad to have him here today. And he wants to help you changing your way to think, to feel, and to act. So please, bring it up for Gelong Top 10, ladies and gentlemen.
So, welcome everybody. It's great to meet you all. And I'm going to be explaining to you a little bit about meditation, mindfulness, and particularly how it can help us to transform our attitudes and transform our way of dealing with stress. So very much connected to our ordinary working life. I think sometimes people think of meditation as something very separate from life. They see it as something you do in the mountains or in retreats, and that's true, you can go to those places. But actually, meditation is something one can do in every situation, so throughout one's working day. And as you heard in the introduction, I do quite a lot of courses for people in the corporate world, teaching them how to integrate mindfulness into their daily activities. And I think the words we used in the title of this talk are very meaningful. We used words such as expand your mind and mental transformation. And I like these terms because sometimes people think meditation is about going to sleep, almost like reducing your mind. I think that's some people's image of meditation. Or they think it means clearing the mind or emptying the mind, which is not true. That is not meditation. That is being in a coma. So it's not about emptying or silencing or reducing. It's about expanding so that we can expand our awareness, expand our compassion, expand our potential. Meditation really is about getting in touch with your potential and living that potential. And then in terms of mental transformation, this term transformation, we're looking at how to transform the way our mind processes our reality. So I want to start talking about stress. I think stress is something we all suffer from. We all live very stressful lives, especially in this digital age. We live fast-paced lives. Everything is computerized, and this has made everything speed up. And I think the way mindfulness and meditation, I'm going to use these two words interchangeably, the way mindfulness and meditation deals with stress is it helps you to change your thoughts. Because if I was to ask you to write down on a piece of paper the top 5 things that cause you stress, well, first of all, you'd write more than 5 things, I'm sure. You'd maybe fill a whole book. And there'd be a list of things. I'm stressed because of this, because of that, because of my boss, because of my colleagues, my clients, my husband, my wife. We all have a list. Everyone has their list. But then I would ask you to look again at that list and ask yourself the following question. Is it my boss who makes me stressed? Or is it my thoughts about my boss? Is it the way my mind reacts to what is happening? I think that's more truthful, isn't it? And of course, when you think in that way, there's the enormous possibility for transformation, because we can transform the way our mind functions. We can transform our patterns of stress reactivity, because we all have these patterns. These patterns of stress are very, They're very deep, and they're very, our intellectual mind has no control over them. They just happen. For example, if you're stuck in traffic and then you start to feel irritated or frustrated, you know in your brain that that does not make the traffic move quicker, but we're still doing it. Or things happen in our life and we react, we worry, we get anxious. We know that's not going to solve the situation, but we're still doing it. So there's a strange mismatch between our intellect and our reactions. Our reactions are sometimes not that healthy, not that helpful, but we still seem to do them. So it's almost as if we are driving a car, but we're not sure who the driver is. I mean, who is driving this car? We like to think of ourselves as free-thinking people living in a free society, a free culture, and that's, of course, true to a large extent. But in terms of mental freedom, that's where we tend to fall down, because we don't seem to have the freedom to choose how we feel or how we think. Very often our mind does things we don't want it to do. Our mind goes to places we don't want it to go. Negative moods, stress, etc. And then, of course, when we are in that state, we don't know how to get out of it. So this is where mindfulness training is enormously helpful, because in mindfulness training, you learn how to be less controlled by our thoughts. And going back to my example of who's driving the car, we learn to put ourselves in the driving seat. So let me give you an example of what that looks like. I'm sure you're all very familiar with what meditation is. You probably know that you sit down, you can either sit on the floor or sit on the chair, and you generally do things such as focus on your own breathing. That's a very common meditation technique. You're not breathing deeply or anything like that, you're just breathing normally, but you're focusing your attention on your breathing. So what is happening there? What happens is you focus on your breathing, and within about 3 seconds, the mind starts wandering. So the plan fails. So we're back in that driverless car. We were wanting to focus on our breathing, but the car went somewhere else. And then what happens? Then you learn to turn your attention around and drive it back to the breath. So you are getting into the driving seat and you are changing direction. So your mind was wandering, you noticed that, and then you returned to your breathing. And then you're breathing again with awareness for a few moments, and then the mind wanders again. And then you bring it back. You've got to be kind of patient with this process and just keep doing it again and again. And that's how a meditation session for beginners anyway works, is that you'll just keep coming back to the breath again and again. And you might say, well, so what? I mean, what's the point? Why should we do such a boring exercise? Well, actually, it has a very deep psychological benefit, Because every time you bring your attention back to your breath, you're making a choice. You are deciding where you send your mind. So you are counteracting this habit mind, the habitual mind, the mind that runs off into anxiety or fear or negativity or stress. You're literally training yourself to let go and return. Now, when you're doing a meditation session, you don't need to be having stressful thoughts in order to learn how to deal with stress. You're just having any old thought, random thoughts. But you are learning how to turn around and come back, which means you're disempowering your thoughts. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with thoughts, and in fact, we need thoughts. We need creative thoughts. We need emotions. These are natural parts of our mind, but we need to be able to choose. It's all about choice. Choosing happiness, choosing peace, choosing well-being, choosing creativity. These are choices. Whereas for many people, they're not choices, they are results. For many people, happiness is a result of many conditions. Happy when, happy if, happy because, happy if only. Do you know these phrases? That tends to be the mantra that rolls around in our head. I will be happy when. I will be happy if. So happiness is a result of all these conditions. And of course, mindfulness is working from the inside because you're learning to choose happiness no matter what. So you could be stuck in that traffic or standing in a line, in a queue, and you feel yourself getting wound up and tired and exhausted, and then you choose mindfulness. You choose to feel the ground under your feet. You choose to be aware of your shoulders. You choose to be aware of your breathing. And this means you are choosing to put yourself in a positive state. And of course, this alters our chemistry. I think the reason why mindfulness is so popular these days is because there's been a lot of scientific research which shows that it alters our chemistry. When I say chemistry, I'm talking about our stress hormones, things like cortisol and adrenaline. These are the stress chemicals that run through our body throughout the day whenever we're under pressure. And mindfulness changes that. So you're choosing to calm down that stressful chemistry. Because basically, most people are going through their day experiencing too much cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone, which we do need when we're in danger. You know, the fight or flight reaction. When somebody's in danger, maybe you're being chased by a tiger, and the brain goes into a warning signal, cortisol is released, and we're ready for danger. That's a very extreme situation. But generally, we're not in danger. We're sitting behind a desk in an office, and yet the brain is still habituated. There is a habit of fight or flight every time we're under pressure. So every time an email comes in, every time the phone rings, the body goes into a slight, maybe sometimes imperceptible tension. There's a slight moment of tension. That is cortisol, and this is building up throughout the day. It's not very good for us. It makes us tired. It makes us stressed. And if you practice moments of mindfulness, and I literally mean moments, that changes it. Because when you practice a moment of mindfulness, you're switching your brain into a different gear, and you're training yourself to move away from the cortisol cycle. And of course, this has all been researched, and you can read about it. Harvard have done lots of research where they've, and other universities and labs have done research where they've measured the brain activity of people who meditate. And not only monks and people who've done long retreats, but also people who have only done maybe 8 weeks of meditation. They also show results. And I think that kind of evidence is why so many people are now really drawn to practice mindfulness and meditation. So, when you do these practices, you're learning to be less controlled by your thoughts. You're learning to be less, you could say, bothered by your thoughts. You can let go. You're not trying to get rid of your thoughts like somebody who's unconscious. You're simply learning to choose. And also, your body chemistry is becoming healthier. Your body starts to produce chemicals that make you feel good, the chemistry of well-being. So you're becoming more in charge of your own internal levels. But the way to practice these methods is very much a daily thing. It's a bit like exercise. It's like fitness training. If you want to get fit, you've got to go to the gym. And you can't just go to the gym once or twice. You have to go every day or 3 times a week or whatever. So it's the same with mind training. It's like training muscles. So that requires consistency. But the good news is that it's very possible to integrate that with a very busy lifestyle. I myself have a really busy lifestyle. I'm traveling all over the world. I'm on aeroplanes every 2 days. So with that busy lifestyle, I practice mindfulness, and it certainly helps me to stay on top of that. So the way to practice it is maybe for 10 minutes every day, or 15 minutes. I would start with 10 minutes, or even 5 minutes, to practice a breathing technique. So you're sitting still and you're focusing on your breath, and that enables you to train yourself to return from your thoughts back to your breath again and again. So that's a meditation session. But that's only 10 minutes every morning or every evening. As well as that, we need to think about how we can integrate moments of mindfulness throughout our day. So micro moments, many times a day, while you are active. So say you're standing in a queue at the airport or the train station, and you're feeling yourself, impatient. You feel yourself go into that tension. You just use conscious awareness to bring yourself back into the present moment. So I do this by feeling the ground under my feet, or I become aware of my shoulders. I relax my body. I bring my attention to my body. So you're getting out of your head and into your body. You're moving away from the thoughts and you're into the reality of the present moment. And this could take 5, 6 seconds, 10 seconds. It's not a big, long thing. It's something you move into many, many times a day. And you can do that while being enormously busy. You can do it during a meeting. You can do it anywhere. So if you combine these 2 techniques, 10 minutes sitting quietly in a chair, in a quiet place, doing your meditation, and then these tiny moments throughout the day, this means that you're actually training pretty much full time, because there's not a big long stretch of time when you aren't connecting with the practice. And so this is really possible for people even with very busy lives, because the daily integration of the practice is done while you are busy, while you are doing whatever you're doing. And if you have these 2 methods in your life every day, then you are training in mindfulness, and this is training in mental transformation. What I'd like to do with you now is actually guide you in a short mindfulness practice. So this is something that's completely non-religious. I know I'm a Buddhist monk, but I'm not here trying to convert you to Buddhism. So if any of you are religious people, please don't feel that this is conflicting with your beliefs. It's completely non-religious. It's basically about mental training. So the way it works is to sit up straight in our chairs. It's good to sit with a straight back so that you're nice and alert, you're aware. And we're going to practice this technique in 3 or 4 steps. The first step is just to be present and bring your attention to your body. Be focused. Next, you bring to mind your intention, your motivation, your reason for practicing. So this means that you could create in your mind an intention to bring more peace to your mind and peace to the world around you. It's a sense of compassion. You create the wish or the intention, I'm going to do this for myself, I'm also going to do this for others. So just create that intention in your mind, first of all. Okay, next, focus on the body. Do this by becoming aware of where your body is in contact with your surroundings. So start by feeling the ground under your feet. Be aware of the contact between your feet and the floor. There's lots of noise in the background, but that's not a problem because you can focus your attention on your body, and if your mind goes off with the noise, you just bring it back. Feel the ground under your feet. Now feel the chair underneath you. Become aware of where your body is connected to the seat. Now focus on your shoulders. Be aware of your shoulders. Maybe there's some tension in your shoulders. You can just be aware and the tension slowly slips away. Now focus on your hands, your fingers. You can feel them resting in your lap or on your knees. Now start to focus on your breathing. Just breathe naturally. Don't try to breathe strongly or deeply. Just leave your breath alone. And focus on it. Feel it. Where you feel the breath. Is it in your belly? Is it in your chest? In your nose? Where do you feel the breath? Just focus your mind there and be aware of it. And follow the breath. In and out, in and out. Follow the breath for a few moments. Now focus on the point where you feel the air comes in and out of your nose. The end of your nose, you can feel the air traveling across the skin at the edge of your nostrils. Focus your attention there. If you can't breathe through your nose, then breathe through your mouth and feel the air against your lower lip. Just focus your attention on that place, and when the mind wanders, keep returning to that place. When you get distracted by noise or thoughts, it's okay. You just turn around and come back again and again. We'll try that for a few minutes. Now to complete the session, focus on your body again. Feel the chair underneath you. Be aware of the contact between your body and the seat. Be aware of the ground under your feet. Relax very deeply by focusing on the sensation of your body seated in the chair. And the last step is to again remind yourself of your intention, the reason why you're practicing mindfulness. So make that commitment in your mind that you want to take care of your own state of mind and you want to be of benefit to others. And stop there. That was around 5 minutes. I don't know if it felt like torture. Sometimes when people are new to meditation, it feels really like you're putting your mind in a cage. But when you get used to it, it becomes very relaxing. You feel more expanded, you feel more alive, you may feel more present, you feel more happy. But you have to train because at first it's real struggle because you try to sit there and focus on your breathing and the mind goes everywhere else. There's noise, there's thoughts. I mean, the noise in our head is much louder than the noise over there. So you're learning how to, okay, you're not trying to silence the noise, but you're learning how not to pay attention to it. You're not giving it your attention. You're giving your breath your attention. You're making the choice. You are deciding what you are going to think about. This is how we learn mental freedom. We take the choice. So what I showed you there, what we did together, is a very classical meditation technique that has been practiced for thousands of years in Buddhism and now is practiced very commonly in mindfulness courses using the breath. And we had 3 or 4 steps. Just to remind you, step 1 was we created the right intention, an intention of compassion. Step 2 was we focused on our body. Step 3 was we focused on our breathing for a few moments, and then we started to feel the breath in our nose. Or if your nose is blocked, then your lower lip. And that's what we really spent the 5 minutes doing. And when our mind wanders, we keep coming back. When it wanders, we keep coming back. That's the power of the training. Then when we were ready to end the session, we repeated the awareness of the body for a few moments. And then we made a sense of, again, why we are practicing. We created that compassionate intention at the end. So that's a very good structure for a mindfulness session, which you could practice for 5 minutes every day. And then when you're a bit more used to it, you could start doing 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but start small. And that's the daily training, alone in a quiet place, at home or at work or wherever. But then, as I mentioned before, the real key point is to also have tiny moments of mindfulness throughout the day. This is much more dynamic. This is while you are busy. I don't mean you sit down and you focus on your breath. I mean that you have moments of connection. So you might be standing in a queue, you might be washing your hands, cleaning your teeth, washing the dishes. Boring things like washing the dishes become interesting. Ironing, nobody likes ironing. But if you do it mindfully, you're getting 2 things done for the price of 1. You're doing your laundry and you're laundering your mind. So it's quite possible to have these moments throughout the day. But what becomes very interesting, and this is really the point when I'm talking about mental transformation, is when you start doing those moments when you are tense or stressed. Because then you are literally training yourself to react differently. And as I mentioned before, we have a lot of very automatic stress reactions that we don't plan. You know, when we're stuck in traffic, we don't think, how shall I react to this? It just happens. Or if somebody says something to us and we feel hurt, we don't think, how shall I feel about this? We just feel hurt. So these are very automatic reactions of stress. Now, if you learn to do tiny moments of mindfulness when your body is tense and when your mind is tense, that's like high-intensity fitness training for the mind, because you're working with resistance. You see, a lot of people, I think, they view meditation as an escape. You go to a beautiful beach and you meditate and there's dolphins and whales and all of that. That's escapism. Real meditation is to intensively train your reactions. And that's why when you're uncomfortable, physically or mentally, that's a very good time to train in mindfulness, because then you are reprogramming your internal computer. So, supposing you're standing in a queue, standing in a line at the airport or in a shop or wherever. You're standing there and you start to feel yourself become tense. You know, you feel yourself rushing or pushing or being impatient. All you need to do is release mentally and feel the ground under your feet. Be aware of your body, be aware of your shoulders, be aware of your breathing if you can. Anything to just put your attention into the present moment. Just for a few seconds. And then do it again and again and again. What you're doing is you're reprogramming your computer. You're training yourself to stay calm when normally you would impulsively become tense. So you are rewiring your system. And then, of course, as you go through life and you experience more heavy stress, your rewired system will view it differently because of the training you've been doing. Additionally, you might even start to welcome stress. I mean, most people want to get rid of stress, but a good meditator actually welcomes stress because they see it like putting more weights on the weightlifting machine when they go to the gym. So what do I mean by welcome stress? I don't mean you become a doormat. I don't mean you ask people to torment you. I don't mean that. I simply mean that when stress appears in your life, you might think, oh, this is a training opportunity. I can train in mindfulness. I mean, very simply, next time you're stuck in traffic, you might have the thought, oh, now I can do that thing I learned from that monk. You know, the memory comes back of what you learned. So you feel kind of interested. You know? You feel interested in this traffic jam. So that's a kind of easy thing, traffic. But if you train in that, then eventually when you're in the more serious situations of life that hurt you or make you struggle, you might feel grateful. If you feel grateful for something, you're ready to learn from it. If you hate it, you're just pushing it away and it will get stronger. Because when you resist something, it just gets stronger and it comes back again and again and again. So if you're kind of interested to learn from this situation, that could be a very exciting thing. And I'm sure you've been to many talks and read many books where they talk about creative approaches to life, learning from difficulties, learning from difficult relationships. We know that's important, but the reality is, how do you do it if you have such a strong habit of feeling negative about those things? How do you change yourself at the level of your guts, your habits? And I think mindfulness is a very good way of doing that, but it needs to have a practical application. Sometimes people ask me, do you have a method I can use when I'm really stressed? And I say, well, it's not something you store up for emergencies. Like you keep mindfulness in your sleeve and then you pull it out when you're really stressed. Because actually, when you're really stressed, the reaction is so strong, we just go into the stress. You know what I mean? But if you're training in these tiny moments throughout the day, moments of tension, and seeing those moments of tension as moments of opportunity at a physical level, if you train like that, then you're ready for stress because you've been developing a kind of mental transformation. So when the bigger stress comes about, you've already got a habit of staying calm and staying relaxed and being grateful or being appreciative and not shutting down mentally or going into a fear state or a negative state. So everything I've said really is along the same lines. It's this theme of mental transformation. We're transforming how we relate to our reality. And of course, nowadays in the world of neuroscience, the term neuroplasticity, I've no idea what that is in German, it's probably even longer in German, neuroplasticity, that term is very popular now, and what it simply means is what I'm talking about, which is that our brain has the potential to be reshaped, to be trained, to experience things a different way through mental development or training. So what the neuroscientists are talking about now is very similar to what the Buddha was talking about 3,000 years ago. Buddha was an incredible neuroscientist. And now there's this kind of meeting of science and meditation, which is very, very exciting. So as you're probably aware, they're doing a lot of brain scans on meditators and different scans and testing their cortisol levels and testing their brain activity. And so this whole notion of neuroplasticity, or the ability to transform the mind, is very hot topic now. And the evidence is out there that if you do these techniques, it does make a difference. So I think we called this talk Expand Your Mind. Expand your mind. And I think people come to these kind of events, such as this conference, to expand their minds. You come to learn more, to kind of grow your intellect, to grow your appreciation of things, to find out more. And I think what I'm talking about in terms of mindfulness is to expand our awareness. So it's not really just about gathering information, but it's about making our mind bigger so it can encompass more. I do quite a lot of work in schools and universities where I'm teaching mindfulness techniques so that kids and students can learn with greater capacity because you're literally expanding the mind. I think if I carry on using metaphors, I think our mind tends to get very small, especially when we're stressed. We can't handle much. Our mind becomes very tight. We can't bear to stuff anything else in there because we feel so tense. But if you do a lot of meditation and mindfulness, you are expanding your state of mind. You're becoming more open. And that's how I would define relaxation. Being relaxed. Sometimes people think of relaxation as a kind of trance-like state where you are almost tranquilized and therefore not that useful. But that's not what I'm talking about. In fact, once I went to a company to teach meditation, and they said, we don't want to be too relaxed because then we'll function less. And I think their image of meditation was almost like being in a hypnotic trance, and that the relaxation would make them lose their efficiency. But I explained to them that that's absolutely not true. Meditation increases your efficiency because the relaxation is a state of expanded mind with focus. Do you remember a few minutes ago when we were focusing on our breathing, I was asking you to focus on the tip of your nose, the air coming in and out of the end of your nostrils. That's a very subtle focus. If you do that every day, it makes your mind much more concentrated, much more aware. So you're achieving relaxation with focus. So this doesn't make you feel like you're sort of doped up on tranquilizers or something like that. It makes you feel conscious, aware, and present. And I think in our culture, we've kind of lost the ability to be present, especially with the internet. I've got nothing against technology or the internet, but one of the downsides of it is that it makes us very absent. We lose sight of where we are or who we are. So using these techniques can get us back in touch with the present moment. So that's what I'd like to share with you. Simple methods for being present. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.
Geelong Top 10, thank you very much. So just one last question. We've now learned one of these practices. What could be the next step if we are interested in meditation? And we are now, I think.
Yeah, I think the next step is to find a class.
Yeah.
Find a meditation class. I'm sure there are many in all cities of the world. Or do the practice I showed you all, and find a class. Or there are also meditation apps you can use.
Oh, okay.
Definitely. Just to continue the training, because there are more techniques involving sound, involving visual objects, involving visualizations. But what I showed you all today is definitely enough to get started.
Okay. This was the start for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Top 10, thank you. All the best for you.
Thank you.